crazy is that? That's a little absurd.
You've always been my best friend.
Streaming only on Disney Plus.
It sure is swelling you to attend today's session. I know we're gonna have a great time. Now, before we get started, I'd like to introduce the host of today's panel, who just happens to be a very close and personal friend of mine, Bret Iwan.
Good morning, D23 Expo! How's everyone doing this morning? You ready for day 3? Yes. Hopefully you've had a great time the past couple of days. I know I have, but I am very much looking forward to sleeping tonight. Anyway, how about that trailer? I just got a little teary-eyed hearing that kid say Mickey was her best friend. I know it's a sentiment I share, but I am so excited to be here this morning with all of you to talk about a project that is very near and dear to my heart, and I was honored to be a part of it. Mickey the Story of a Mouse is part of an exciting kickoff to our celebration of the Walt Disney Company's 100th anniversary. It's incredible, right? Disney 100 Years of Wonder is an 18-month celebration of the rich legacy of storytelling and immersive experiences that have been a hallmark of the company since its founding in 1923. It's guaranteed to be a lot of fun, and we're just starting. It's going to be the largest cross-company celebration in our history, so get ready for that. You guys are at the kickoff. Come on, this is great. Now, we all know that Mickey has been instrumental in so much of the company's history, and that is why I continue to be extremely honored to play even the smallest part in that story. But this morning, we're here for this exciting film, Mickey the Story of a Mouse, and you are going to get an exclusive sneak peek at the first 10 minutes of that film. Yes, before everybody else, so that's your reward for showing up early. Okay, so I'm really excited about that. And then after we watch those 10 minutes, we're going to introduce the filmmakers and the contributors to that film on stage here to talk about their involvement, to talk about all things Mickey, and, you know, sharing the excitement and the love we have for that character. So, without further ado, let's take a look. Do you want to see the rest of it? Yes! Okay, well, we're not going to see it now because we've got some really fun people to talk to instead. I'm really excited about this part because you're going to meet the filmmakers, the people behind the scenes who brought this to life. So let's start with the film's director. Director Jeff Malmberg, we practiced this backstage and I told him I was going to mess up his name. Jeff Malmberg is a documentary filmmaker whose debut film, Warren Call, won more than 24 awards, and also previously teamed up with the producer, Morgan Neville, as editor on Neville's Won't You Be My Neighbor, that wonderful film about Mr. Rogers. So please welcome to the stage, director Jeff Malmberg. I told you I'd mess it up. Sorry. You're prepared. All right, up next we have the film's producer, Shellen. She's a writer and filmmaker based in California. Together with her partner, Jeff, she directed the award-winning Italian documentary, and they told me how to say this name. Again, I'm going to mess it up. You want to help me, Jeff? What's it called?
Spettacolo.
Spettacolo. There you go. You have to emphasize the T's. Please welcome Shellen. All right, up next we have producer Meghan Walsh. Meghan's recent work includes the Emmy-winning Who Do You Think You Are?, the hit Netflix series The Goop Lab, and the feature film for Mad Men Only, The Stories of Del Close, which screened at South by Southwest. Whoa, it's early. I'm tongue twisting here.
Oh boy!
That always gets me back on track. I'll forget everything else if I just do that. Please welcome Meghan Walsh. I'm so glad everyone else is going to be talking after this, then I can just Point. All right, up next, we have a legend among us, director, designer, and animator who has worked extensively in New York, London, and Hollywood. He's known for designing and animating the genie in Aladdin and co-directing the Disney animated feature film Pocahontas, among so many other things. Please welcome to the stage my friend Eric Goldberg. Speaking of Disney legends, up next, Floyd Norman has had an illustrious career at the Walt Disney Company, starting all the way back in 1956, and he is the only one on this morning's panel who actually worked with Walt Disney himself. Please welcome Disney legend Floyd Norman. Another friend of mine, Becky Cline. She joined the Walt Disney Company in 1989. She is today the director of the Walt Disney Archives and is charged with collecting and preserving all aspects of Disney history and making that material available to all areas of the Walt Disney Company. Please welcome Becky Cline. Oh, well, thank you for bearing with my tongue-twisting intros. It's so nice to join the stage with all of you. You know, as I mentioned, I got to be a little part of this film, which I was beyond honored to do. But Jeff, let's kick it off and just ask the basic question of how did this film originate? How did the idea come to you, or how were you approached?
Going back to before Disney Plus, a world before Disney Plus, 2018, Disney approached Morgan and Tremolo with the idea of doing a Mickey film, and Morgan and I worked together a bunch, and I think he kind of knows me a little bit, and he called and said, hey, how do you feel about doing a Mickey film with me? And you know, usually it's one of those things where you take a little while to kind of research, because it's a commitment, and I sort of instantly got why that would just be a wonderful thing to do. And, you know, it just started from there, and we started meeting these fabulous people and kind of doing our research and building our team.
Amazing, amazing. And why do you think Mickey deserves his own documentary?
I mean, you know, you see it yeah, sure. You see it a bit in that footage that you guys saw. It's like he's this kind of symbol of joy for everyone, everywhere, all the time. So, of course, you know, as filmmakers, we wanted to really unpack that and celebrate it and unpack it. And there's such a long history, and you know, what was great for us too was not just talking to Becky about the history, but also working with Eric on the new Mickey stuff. You know, so it was really both a past and present situation that got us excited.
Yeah, and having seen the film several times at this point, I can tell you that it is amazing and insightful and is beyond all of your expectations. Chris, was there anything that surprised you about Mickey while making the film?
I mean, everything. I mean, I've been a big Mickey fan since I was a child. My dad was a college professor, and he used to wear Mickey attire just to show that he wasn't like your average college professor. He was your cool college professor. So I always was very fond of him. But when we started researching it and really digging into it, there were just all of these amazing stories that kept coming up with people we would talk to. I mean, everything from, like, I think the World War II section is one of my favorites because there are things in there that hopefully most people don't even know. And just how much he meant to the world. But also I think one of the things that really delighted me the most was just to see how Eric and Floyd and the other animators worked with him and just how effortlessly they put all of that together, and to see like all the thought and consideration that went into Mickey, not just now but like through the years, and the thought and consideration that Becky's group put into treating it like the art that it is, because I think sometimes it gets dismissed because it's Mickey Mouse, he's just a cartoon, but he's not. It is art, and I love what they've done to really to protect that and preserve it. And it's fun to be able to go inside those rooms that nobody's allowed into and see what they're doing.
I love that because Mickey is somewhat sacred in some aspects of the company, but then he's also so viable today, right? Like, so there's this dichotomy that has to be balanced. And again, I think you guys did such a great job at doing that, but bringing in the experts and then creating new stuff with Mickey in a Minute, which we'll talk to Eric about in a second. Meghan, we were just reminiscing about when we first met and when we were working together. That was late January of 2019, or 2020, I'm sorry. And as we all know, something happened that year. So a little thing called a pandemic if you were sleeping. Did that pose any problems, or how did you work around that? I mean, I can't imagine that was easy.
The last 3 years have been a breeze, no problem at all. I think it starts from the top with Jeff, who is such a collaborative and generous person, and it made the transition for us when we had to start doing this remotely much easier. Filmmaking is very much a team sport, a team effort. You have to be in touch with each other 24/7. So just not even being able to knock on an edit bay door, but pick up the phone or send an email, everything we've all been dealing with. It definitely, was an adjustment, but we had an amazing team. The 3 folks up here we were in touch with throughout that part of the process, and everyone was just super flexible, adaptable, very willing to work with us, and I think that made it easy on our behalf. And we have Mickey fans in the film and a lot of other experts, and everybody was just really willing to see this through to the end. And I think that speaks to the power of Mickey Mouse and what this character means to all of us and everybody here.
Absolutely. Speaking of those Mickey fans, I'm curious, how did you find them? What was the process like to decide what Mickey fans do? I have a feeling there's a few Mickey fans in the audience, right? And so, no doubt you had a plethora of casting options. Like, how did you find, again, I'm going back to that little girl who was like, Mickey's my best friend, and I see that, and I'm like, like, how did you choose these people, or how did you find them? It's incredible.
We found one of them here.
Oh.
At D23.
See, you can be discovered at the Expo.
Yeah, I was walking around looking for people in interesting Mickey wear, and I pulled a few of them aside, and one of them is in the film. So, you see her name's Monty, but yeah, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, we were really fortunate. I mean, obviously there's a huge love for Mickey Mouse out in the world, and we were really dedicated to finding individuals who had such a unique and personal story about how Mickey impacted them directly. Not the larger Disney universe, not Disneyland, Disney World, but Mickey specifically. And, we went after, various fan groups and the message boards and, social media stalking. But yeah, we found a great group of people that just had such unique and personal, in-depth stories, and were so gracious in sharing really, intimate moments about their childhood or their current lives that involved Mickey, and just really fortunate. So yeah, that part of the process I think we're all really fond of. We wanted to make it inclusive, people of all different ages, all different backgrounds. Mickey means something to everybody on this globe, whether good or bad. One of the most universal symbols on Earth. So it was like how to capture that and make it a democratic process.
I can't imagine it was easy, but it looks like you found some good options. I love the guy who goes, Mickey's everywhere, leave me alone.
I'm sorry.
I sometimes take those things too personally. I probably shouldn't. All right, Eric, let's talk about the wonderful project Mickey in a Minute, which, again, I was so honored to be a part of. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that idea came about?
Well, we found out that, Jeff wanted some custom animation for the documentary. So we all got together at the studio, and I said it's like a group of us animators, and Amy Astley, and, lots of my colleagues and peers, and we kind of jam sessioned it, and came up with this idea of Mickey walking down the hallway at Disney Animation Studios, looking at his own posters and reminiscing. And when he gets a little whirlwind, he gets sucked into a vortex that catapults him backwards through his greatest hits. And we thought it would be great to do something where Mickey is shown in almost all of his styles, all in less than a minute. And of course, we have the specter as animators of all the greats who came before us, looking over our shoulders going, don't mess it up. So we did our level best to actually do justice to this wonderful mouse.
And I think you absolutely did. And Eric and I had the opportunity to be on a cruise last week with Disney Vacation Club. We went a little bit more in depth into the detail he and his fellow animators put into, like you said, that having reverence for those shorts and those depictions that had come before, and you really miss no detail. Like, it's incredible.
We really try to honor this stuff. There's many of us who work at a part of the studio called Creative Legacy, and we're kind of the keeper of these characters. And when we get an opportunity like this, we pull out all the stops. I'll give you one little hint, okay? So when you see Mickey in a minute, one of the iterations he goes through is Mickey Mouse Club Mickey from the 1950s. Well, we noticed that if you look at the 50s animation that was produced for that show, the outer outline is thicker than the internal lines. And we just went ahead and did that to really set him in that era and really make it look right. And through all the different iterations, we noticed all those kinds of different details.
I love it. As an animation fan, I definitely picked up on all of those little things. It looks like you pulled directly from those shorts that you're referencing. So, amazing job.
Thank you. And you too.
Oh, well, thanks.
Mutual admirations is hard.
I was so nervous when I found out that Eric was directing that session, by the way. I was like, who? Why? Okay, Floyd, I was really blown away by a lot of the insight you brought to this documentary. You articulated so well so many aspects of what Mickey means to so many people in a way that I had never really been able to think of before. Why do you think it's important to see Mickey as something other than just a corporate symbol? Because I feel like he's kind of, for some people, that's what he's become, but I guess I'll just leave it at that. Why do you think it's important that we see him beyond that?
Well, because to me, Mickey's always been real. And so in the 1980s, when suddenly I found myself out of animation and playing a new role as a writer, I had to write Mickey Mouse stories. And I had never really written Mickey before. But lo and behold, when I started writing, I found it was not a difficult task. And you know why? Because I knew this guy. I had known Mickey all my life. So when you know a character, and when you know him that well, it's not just a cardboard character, he's real. And so when I had this task of writing Mickey Mouse stories, what I thought was going to be a difficult job was a very easy job. And that's because I knew Mickey Mouse so well. I mean, he's like a real person. He is a real person. He's a real person. There you go.
I found myself saying pretty often lately that Mickey is that mutual friend we all share. I, believe it or not, have social anxiety. My worst fear is like going to a party where I don't know anybody and having to introduce myself. But I always think Mickey is that person when you walk into the party and you find out, you're like, oh, you know Mickey? Oh, cool, okay. And you can start that conversation. Like, it's something we all share. Especially in the context of something like the D23 Expo, where we're all here to celebrate all things Disney. It's like, we all share that love of Mickey. And you're right, Mickey is real. He's before us, he's after us, he is us. And again, I just think he articulated that so well in the film. So, thank you.
He's the boss.
Thank you. And he's the boss. And he is the boss. Let's not forget, he's listening. Becky, I know so much about what you contribute to the company, but I'm curious, what was your favorite part of participating in this film? Like, I mean, you get to work on everything from current feature films to the very early Alice comedies, right? But what was it about working on this film that excited you?
Well, just like everybody, I love Mickey Mouse. I have since I was a tiny child. And I agree with Floyd. I think Mickey is human. I mean, and Walt even said it. He said it's Mickey's humanity that makes him relatable. And it's very true that he's part of our DNA, and you know, with the emphasis on the D. You know, it's one of those things where he's just been a part of my life ever since I can remember, and working really closely with the people who love and create new stories for Mickey, and who share all that information with the people who love him the most. Getting the chance to kind of corral those people and to get to know them and to listen to their stories, that's one of the joys of working in the archives, is actually the people that we get to relate to and work with. And I learned so much every day. I mean, I've been with Disney for 33 years and 29 of that in the archives, and I hear new stories every time I talk to these folks. And you know, for me, that's the joy of being in the archives. It's not just seeing the stuff and reading the documents, but talking to these living legends who knew Walt and who heard firsthand and were part of the process. To me, that's the most exciting thing about being in the archives, is the people that you get to meet and talk to and hear.
That's incredible. It's sharing that experience, right? Mm-hmm. And that love, again, the love and appreciation. I'm going to ask you, but I think Floyd should also answer this question. What do you think Walt would think of the film?
I think Walt would love the fact that we're celebrating Mickey this far into the future. You know, Walt had an alter ego. Mickey was Walt and Walt was Mickey. There's no question that they're two parts of a whole.
Yes.
And just like I think anybody, you know, 100 years on would be so pleased to know that they're remembered and loved, and that the work that they did is admired. And I think Walt would be thrilled that we still love his little pal Mickey today, and that he is doing so well and still has new fans from 9 months old to 90.
So true. Floyd, what do you think Walt would, being somebody who worked with the man, what do you think he would think?
Okay, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be afraid to show this film to Walt.
Hey, that's saying something.
That's saying a lot.
I've been in the room with Walt Disney and showed him stuff that he didn't particularly care for. I always felt so sorry for the filmmaker who was sitting next to Walt Disney and had to explain why the film didn't quite live up to Walt's expectations. So I don't think we would have that problem with this film. I think Walt would have a big smile on his face.
I think I have to agree with that. I do love that little clip that we saw in the first 10 minutes where Walt says, you know, Mickey still speaks for me and I still speak for Mickey. I think that sums up so well what you said. Walt is Mickey and Mickey is Walt. So maybe this is for Jeff, Meghan, and Chris. Was there anything in the film that, or like in the course of making the film, maybe some of the interviews, anything that kind of surprised you, or maybe like one memory that really sticks out as impactful?
I mean, Chris and I are married, and we had, at the time, our daughter's 7 now, she was 3 or 4 when we first started. So I remember going to the park with her and seeing her, and she'd had some exposure to Mickey. You kind of can't avoid it at a certain point. But, you know, I had not pitched her the concept of Mickey Mouse. She was 3 years old. And the look on her face when she saw Mickey in person was very much the seed that was in my mind when we filmed those kids. And in fact, she ended up being one of those kids that you see there. And, you know, I think just the kind of joy that Mickey as a symbol or as a character engenders is just something that is just endlessly fascinating. And, you know, we did something interesting in all our interviews was whoever we were talking to, whether it was these folks or, you know, fans or whoever, we would say, what's Mickey in one word to you? And they would think about it, and it was always, you know, it would take them a little while, and they would come up with the word, and although it always sort of usually wrapped around the idea of joy or happiness, or it was always different. So it's like, even though it was, you know, universal, it's also very particular. and very personal. So, those were kind of some of the things for me. I think also just working with Eric on the short and being able to hang out at the Disney Animation, it's one thing to say, okay, you're going to be making a Mickey Mouse film where, they're going to have, it's for Disney, you're going to have access to all the masters. It went so far beyond that. It's like both in the archives and just how much care they took with this stuff. The way a line had been drawn 70 years ago was important and should be saved and should be kept and should be able to be looked at, if Eric needs inspiration or things like that. That's a level of curation that, from an artistic standpoint, that I was really impressed with. And then also on, the sort of now aspect of Mickey, just getting to hang out with Eric and meeting him and watching him animate was just such a, Mickey's great and he has this great past, but to be able to focus on that present was really special for us.
You're making me blush.
Yeah, I mean, I would always feel like, and we would say when we were working on it, it's like, how do we get close to that spirit of Mickey? And for today, it was really...
Yeah, I'd like to chime in on that. I mean, we live in a world now where CG and 3D and IMAX, these are the norms. But being able to work with Eric and Floyd and Becky's team at the archives, it's going back to the roots of what built this company, why we're all here, this meticulous craft and the way that the pencil brought Mickey to life originally, and being able to honor that when we live in such different times now, and being able to reflect and still honor the work that Eric and so many at the company are still doing in that avenue.
Go ahead.
I just want to add, my favorite kind of animation is animation that looks like it's enjoying itself on screen. And who better embodies that than Mickey Mouse? And if we can't get that across,
Well, I think, you mentioned the getting to see and go back, and we saw some clips of you in the Animation Research Library. They're pulling out and they're showing the rough animation from Brave Little Tailor and whatnot, and there's nothing like that. I'm so glad that we do preserve that and that you were able to showcase that in this film, because I think you did such a good job of pulling that in occasionally to kind of reference.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the fun things that you can do in the process. We saw that Brave Little Tailor animation, that's the opening title animation, in that same way, which was somebody showed it to us and it just sort of made our mouths drop. And,
Can we use that?
Yeah, exactly. And in a way, it was sort of shaped back editorially to be an introduction for the people watching the film of like, this is the level of care, this is what we're talking about, this is how it's done. It's done with hands, it's done with paper, it's done, that's where the magic starts. So that was important to us to like make that forward kind of idea.
Maybe this can be the launch pad for more traditionally animated Mickey. What do you think, Eric? Well, why don't we touch a little bit more on Mickey in a minute, Eric? How long, it's a minute, literally Mickey in a minute. Give us a little insight into how long did that short take?
it actually took us about, probably start to finish, about a year, just for a minute of film. Now, obviously, animation is a collaborative medium, so we have many people working on it, and you saw in the film my colleagues Mark Hand and Randy Haycock, who also animated on it, and we had cleanup artists. My wife Susan, aside from just making my shirts, is also an animation artist, so she worked on this too. And, you have a whole slew of people, even if it's a small crew, all of them plussing it and contributing to it along the way. And that's something that's wonderful, really, is getting a group of people to all go towards a common goal. And Mickey was a great common goal on this. And, it took that long because we took that much care to do it, let's put it that way. We had other projects in between. We were working on the animation for Drawn to Life, the Cirque du Soleil show in Walt Disney World, and lots of other projects as well. as making Mickey and Minute at the same time. So, you know, we wind up like the characters on Ed Sullivan spinning the plates to the saber dance. You know, yeah, okay, she got it. Anyway, but that kind of keeps us fresh too. And what Creative Legacy does at the studio is honor these characters that mean so much to us. We owe them doing it right.
I have a feeling it wasn't hard to find any, the enthusiasm to work on your project. I doubted it was like, Mickey, no, forget that. Becky, I just, I'm thinking back at the information you portrayed in the film, and, I guess when you hear a Mickey documentary, it's easy to assume it's going to be this big, glossy, happy story that we all know. A lot of us know already, but you did take the opportunity to touch on, I guess this goes for Jeff and you as well, you didn't gloss over all the historical aspects of Mickey, which sometimes aren't that comfortable to talk about. But you guys did kind of address them head on, and I guess how was that for you, Becky, kind of trying to keep that narration, accurate? But.
Yeah, that's the thing with history. I mean, Mickey is emblematic of a decade, a century, He started in the 20s and is up to today, so it's been 100 years of Mickey. And as America has changed, and as our culture and civilization has changed over that 100 years, Mickey's had to adapt to it. He's had to always be Mickey within that. And so sometimes it's gotten difficult for the company to try to protect Mickey and to keep him out of situations that we don't want him affiliated or associated with, but also to keep him out there for people to love and enjoy. So it's tricky, and the company has struggled with it at times. And yeah, we wanted to make sure that we told the whole story, the real story about Mickey, and to do that you have to, as they say, warts and all, you have to address those situations sometimes and maybe help explain them, but also just admit that, these things happen, and this is what we did, and now, this is where we are.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective as filmmakers, that was important to us too. That was one of the first things that we were really kind of wanting to make sure was that we got to tell all of the story, and that it was a celebration, but it was an honest celebration. And thinking about things, particularly like off-brand Mickey art. I think we live in an age where people who took Mickey, there was this thing that happened particularly in the 60s and the 70s where, Mickey had so much meaning and so much kind of power that of course artists were going to take that and spin it, because it's shorthand. It's an image that is just laced with power. So, to be able to talk to people who did Vietnam protest shorts, Milton Glaser, who's a famous and incredible artist who used Mickey in that way. That to us was part of this story. And, really looking at Mickey now, it makes a fuller picture of Mickey. So, I think it's one of those things where that wasn't just something to dance over, but something that was essential if we were going to tell the story right. That was part of it,
And absolutely necessary. And again, I think you guys did such a fantastic job at showcasing all of the story. And yeah, I think it needed to be done. And you did such a great job with that. Floyd, you've been with the company since 1956, and I even heard you backstage saying, even when you retired, you still didn't leave. and they're gonna take down the building and leave Floyd alone. So you've seen, I have to imagine, you've seen Mickey in all kinds of iterations. Do you have any version of Mickey that is a favorite, or you think maybe represents him the best? And do you have a version of Mickey that you kind of think was, let's just forget about that?
Well, I think we all have our personal favorites. Mine has always been Freddie Moore's Mickey. And that's the Mickey. Freddie's Mickey. It's kind of the Mickey I grew up with, and even though the other iterations are not bad at all, I always harken back to what Freddie did, and there's just something so charming about his interpretation of Mickey Mouse. that whenever I draw Mickey, and I do sketch Mickey a lot, I'm always, inspired by what Fred had done so many years ago. I never had the opportunity to meet Fred Moore. He had passed away when I arrived at the Disney studio, so here's one of my Disney heroes I never met. But his work has always inspired me. I have Freddie's original sketches at home now that I was lucky enough to spirit out of the Walt Disney studio. Because I so admire, his craftsmanship, so. Yeah,
I think that's justified. It's just reference, taking home some research.
It's just reference, right?
Yeah. You'll bring it back.
I'll be coming over with the trucks.
Don't worry, Floyd. I have a few Mickey drawings in my house as well that I've already told Becky. They're earmarked to be returned to the archives when I'm done with them. They're just reference. Eric, I think I've heard you say that is Fred Moore's styling one of your favorites as well?
Absolutely. I have to echo Floyd here because, and I'll be even more specific, I love the 1941 Freddie Moore Mickey. Okay, I'm thinking Little Whirlwind, Mickey's birthday party, just great nifty 90s, great handling of the character. He was never more fluid or more joyous than in Freddie Moore's hand, and that's the one I aspire to. But like Floyd, I love them all,
That's the thing that's so special about Disney animation, especially of the 40s. Personality animation was one of Walt's main contributions to the world, was making these characters real and human and individual characters and giving them life. And I think Mickey's he just kind of broke out in the early 40s with Fantasia and those 1941 cartoons. And I think, I agree. I think that was just a special time.
And if anyone's asking my favorite Mickey, I'm going to say Fred Moore's as well. I completely agree. People always ask me, like, do I hear like Mickey's head or voice in my head when I'm like dreaming or recording? And I don't. But when I am recording, I picture a little hand-drawn animated mouse, and it's in Fred Moore style because it's the best. Yeah.
He's my favorite too, definitely like the early 40s Mickey, but it's been interesting to watch our daughter through this whole process because obviously she we forced her to see every single Mickey cartoon ever. And she loved all of the early Mickeys, but she also loves the modern Mickeys and the TV shows, the little the shorts that are out now and the ones that are in other countries and with and shot in actually like those languages. She just really responds to all of it, and so it's neat to see that he's evolved, but still every single Mickey connects with kids today.
And that's a testament to Walt Disney Animation Studios and keeping Mickey pure. And no matter what he looks like, he's still Mickey, and he still acts like Mickey, and he thinks like Mickey, and responds like Mickey, and that's what's important.
Yeah, it looked like you were going to chime in there.
Oh, it's part of the fun was interviewing people, collectors who were like into 1935 Mickey and never did anything after that, or Fred Moore, 1941, or everybody had their particular, and that was always so interesting to see because it speaks to that passion, it speaks to those things. But it was also nice. I was just gonna second what she was saying. It's like our daughter will literally go from Lonesome Ghost to the modern stuff and back and forth, and there's just no difference there. And I kind of wish I had that kind of Catholic sense of it because I'm a Fred Moore guy too. I think that's my absolute favorite. I like all of them, but it's like it was just really neat to see somebody. It was all Mickey to her, and that was really cool too.
The core remains the same.
Yeah.
Like to Becky's point. I had a question and it just slipped out of my mind because I haven't had enough coffee yet. Shoot, what was it? Well, I was going to go down the line, and we've got about 10 minutes left. We might wrap up a little bit early, but how about we go down and we say one word that Mickey represents to us? Am I making sense? Let's choose one word to represent Mickey for each of us. That's a challenging question, right? Riveting.
Yes. I thought a lot about this because I asked, we asked people, and I'd be like, what would my answer be? So thank you for somebody finally asked me. I would say joy.
I would say perseverance, because he's like the little mouse that could, and he keeps failing a lot through all of the cartoons, but he just keeps getting back up there. So,
Yeah, I would say layered. There's a lot to Mickey's history that we didn't know before we started this journey, and these guys enlightened us too, so.
I would say animation. I think he embodies animation in the most purest form.
I think Mickey Mouse is resourceful. Anytime you watch a Mickey Mouse cartoon, or even when I was writing Mickey Mouse stories, Mickey was always going to find a way out because he was always very resourceful.
And I'd say optimism, because, everybody says, what would Walt do? And then I look at it and say, what would Mickey do? Because he's always going to keep moving forward and be happy. And I think about that sometimes when I get down. It's like, what would Mickey do? And he'd get over it.
Absolutely. I think Walt. I heard Wayne Allwine, Jimmy McDonald was talking to Wayne Allwine in an interview, and he told Wayne when he got the role, he said, remember kid, you're only filling in for the boss. And I think that's a very important thing to remember. I'm Mickey number 4, there will be several Mickey voices after me, but I try to think of it as I'm just doing my part to fill in for Walt, to keep his legacy alive in the way that he started voicing Mickey. So for me, it's Walt. And I did remember the question that I lost. And I hope this isn't giving too much away, but you mentioned Mickey collectors, and you guys do feature a collector in the film. And I was a little taken back by, at the end of the interview, he says he's not a fan of Mickey. So, I'm curious, is he just really into collecting, or does he really not like Mickey?
Can I answer that one? Because I think I hooked him up with you guys. That's Mel Burnkrant. And Mel has got the most amazing Mickey collection I've ever seen. We have a great one. But his collection of Mickey Mouse is stunning. And I went to see him for the first time and saw his collection. And what he told me was that he liked Mickey Mouse, he loved Mickey Mouse, but he was an artist himself, and he's enamored of the graphics of Mickey and how Mickey looks and works. And I have to agree with him there. The thing that's so amazing about Mickey is he's completely non-threatening. He's all circles, like John Hedge said. But babies who've never seen him before immediately go for him. And there's something about that magic, I don't even know what it is, about the 3 circles and those soft round circles and the eyes, and he's love in a little package.
And I gotta say, being able to interview people like Mel, I've seen some Disney collectors in various shows, and I both wanted to honor what people know about Mickey and feel about Mickey, but also we wanted to kind of angle it in a certain way so you could see something new in there. And I gotta say a big thank you to these two, Megan and Chris, producing the film, because I felt like I had it easy. Like all I had to do was talk to Mel, and he had these amazing theories about geometry and things like that. But it was really you two kind of like trying to slice up the world to find that so we could see it new. Like if you had 2 minutes, there's so much that we had to cover and got to cover, but if you have 2 minutes to talk to a collector, what are you going to learn there? And if you see 1,000 plush toys, well, that's something, but I've seen that before. Like, how do we see it different, and how do we both honor it and see something new inside of it? So I felt like you guys had that interesting job of like trying to find people like Mel, trying to find the people who help you see it in a new way.
It was fascinating, especially you had asked about moments that surprised or taught us something, and I think maybe Kay Mellons might be out there from Marceline.
Okay.
I don't know if she's out there in the audience. She's here, I think, at D23, but just learning about Walt, to Floyd's point and Becky's point, how connected he was, and then seeing like the early Mickey cartoons. If you look at them, there is so much of Marceline and Walt's beginnings there, and Kay was so instrumental in helping us see that. In fact, in one of the early cartoons, you can see Walt's barn in the background. There are all these little clues that you can see. So I'm curious to see what people see in the movie, all the little Easter eggs and things.
I love that part, because again, feeling like I had a significant amount of Walt knowledge and history in my brain watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. You know, Kay talking about him laying in the grass and I forget what the phrase was of someone belly botany, right? And then you compared it so well with some of the Silly Symphony shorts, and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing, too. It's like Mickey, people have written about him, there's been things about him for a long time, so there is that intimidating factor. If you're going to do something, you better have some new elements in there and connect some dots. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because Marceline to us was sort of a synthesis that I hadn't quite seen before. So it was nice to kind of try and connect those dots in that way.
And again, it's like thinking of Walt as Mickey, Mickey as Walt. It's not a new concept, but I guess maybe I was a little surprised at how you really kind of opened that envelope up a little bit more. You know, it kind of dove in deeper to Walt's origins and how that really informed Mickey's journey along the way, because he really did kind of mirror a lot of Walt's experience.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's depending on who you talk to, and again, I think this speaks to the passion about Mickey and Walt, is some people, well, he only lived in Marceline for X number of years, and that's not really the point. Like, you can define your childhood as 15 minutes you had with your dad playing catch. Like, you can define your childhood however you want. And I think Walt's childhood could be defined as this window of adventure inside Marceline. Now, that might have been only 2 years, but I think it makes it even more poignant than it was. You know, so it's like when you start doing this research, it's like, well, I always thought like people were missing the point there. You know, that like your memory can be short or long. That's not, you know, if he's saying it's Marceline, he's saying it's that tree, I'm willing to believe him. I want to try and go down that road and learn something about it.
Sounds like there might be a follow-up documentary.
Yeah, there could be. I mean,
Disney Plus, if you're listening, we have a pitch for you.
Mickey too. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of stuff we wanted to cover and didn't have time.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, was there anything that got left on the cutting room floor that?
Like so many things. Like I personally really got interested in the cartoons and everything that Floyd worked on, and I could have gone on forever with that, but they said Chris 90 minutes, so.
I mean, series, follow-up documentaries.
Director's cut.
Directors, oh yeah, extended, yes. At the next expo, for sure. Well, we're just about out of time. I have to say thank you to all of you for sharing your stories, your experiences, your insight, and most importantly, your love and appreciation of Mickey. Thank you to all of you for joining us. I guarantee you you're going to love the film when it is finally released on Disney Plus. So, again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day 3 at the D23 Expo, everybody. We'll see you real soon.
November 18th.